just recently, the poor little thing has been trying to divide her attention between my friend David, who's writing a maths textbook, and me, and I was writing a novel. So she'd sit with me all night, and then she'd sit with David all day, and she's absolutely pooped. Poor little thing, requiring extra dinner and 12 hours sleep, and really finally all finished. The poor little cat was exhausted. But a cat is a good thing to have, or indeed a dog. A dog would be nice. You could put your feet on a dog. And my mother always used to put her feet on the dog when she was feeding the baby. And Labrador dog, big dog. Or a cat cats seem to really like writers. They like artists too. They want to find out what you're doing. Put their nose between you and the medium. If you're writing a thing, they'll grab the pencil. Yeah. I think there must be something that tickles their whiskers. Or really amuses them, I'm not sure. But anyway, there it is. So the other thing, I'll offer you a little piece of this, is free advice. And as I said, I do this very seldom. This is only a special favour to Kingston. So the secret is, don't try and complete and perfect chapter 1. You can't perfect chapter 1. Chapter 1 cannot be perfected. Australia is full of people who come up and give me the Great Australian Grab, which means you're not getting your arm back until you listen to me. And it's saying, oh, I'm writing a novel too, and it'll be really good once I get chapter 1 right. You can't get chapter 1 right. It's impossible. It's a catch-22. You have to finish the book. And even someone who writes as fast as I do, 6 weeks, 3 weeks on some occasions, has to go back and rewrite chapter 1, because the book is never exactly what you thought it was going to be when you wrote chapter 1. So you can't fix chapter 1. Do not muck around with it. Don't edit it. Don't change it. Go on until you've got at least 10,000 words. And then you can go back and play with it. And if you seem to be writing a book about, as it might be, George Bernard Shaw, and the character who keeps dropping in is George Bernard Shaw's maid, and she seems to be telling the story, go with it. There's a story it wants to be told. Like a fairy story or any other story, the story seems to exist in the universe and it wants to be told, and you just have to let it tell itself. If you start sort of interfering with it, or stopping it, or dragging the story back to where it began, you'll freeze. You'll get exactly the same thing as computers get with screen freeze, saying, excuse me, madam, I'm not used to this treatment, and what's more, I'm just not staying, and the story will just disappear, and then where you'll be? You'll feel terrible. So the thing to do is just go with it. It is a flow, and however, I remember being on the Women Writers Train where there were all manner of different kinds of writers, from my best writing buddy, Jenny Parzacker, who writes 3 drafts. The first one is written in pencil on an inclined board and is so terrible she cannot bring herself to quote it except to say that one of the cliches she found was the sun rose like a red ball. And that was only the one she could bring herself to quote. And or Nadia Wheatley, who writes 5, or Isabel Carmody, who has a tendency to write a new novel on the galley proofs, causing publishers to go all wobbly, Actually, last time I remember seeing Isabel with a galley proof, this is the actual typeset thing. It's the next moment. You're supposed to put in very few comments and very few changes. And she tends to write this new novel. So last time she used to live down on the coast, and they sent a young man who said, here is the galley proofs. I'm going to sit here while you read them, and then I'm taking them home in an hour. Or right down to Judith Rodriguez, the poet, a very good poet, who we had to give her own waste paper basket because she'd write something down and then go, scritch, scritch, throw. I'd say, scritch, scritch, throw? What are you doing? She said, it wasn't right, dear. I said, yes, but it might have been. I own every piece of paper I've written on since grade 3. When I wrote my first sentence, the world is round and spins in space. I was very impressed. This is seriously significant stuff. Someone could learn it and read it while I'm not there, and they'd still know that the world was round and spins in space. There's a Kipling story, by the way, about that, about the power of words and the power of letters. And it made a great deal of impression on me. And such a lot of people have helped me. I mean, my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Witherspoon, God bless his heart, who lives somewhere around here, he said nobody believed I could read because I was too young. But I actually taught myself to read, or my mother taught me to read when I was 3. I had this favourite book, Katie the Kitten. It was a little golden book. Remember good little golden books? Yeah, David's favourite was Mr. Dog, which his name was Crispin's Crispian because he would belong to himself. Well, mine was Katie the Kitten, a small tiger cat is asleep on a hall in a ball in a hat. And I could recite the whole book, which of course most children can, but because my mother could also recite it, she was just turning the pages. And I somehow must have worked out what was on each page. And so by the time I was 3, I could read. So when I was in 4th grade, and I still could, no one would still not believe me, he gave me his newspaper and said, read me this, and I read it. And he said, here's the key, that you can read any book in that bookcase. Oh, no mouse ever led into a silo on its own has ever been so delighted. I was impressed. So anyway, I read my way. There were lots of good books, and that included The Wind in the Willows, the Just So stories, and lots of spiffy books. And I read all of them, one after another, bringing them back. And that's why I fell in love with libraries. It's so amazing that, I walked into Footscray Library at the age of 5, and they said you can have 2 books and you just have to bring them back and you can have another 2 books. And admittedly, I'd usually read my books on the way home. And was saying to my mother, we can go back again tomorrow. But I never minded reading them again, so it was, it was really good. More questions, please. Yes?
My 19-year-old granddaughter has just discovered you, and she's working through the Franny books in order, and I'm going to have to go home and tell her what you said at the time. So I'm wondering if you've ever recorded this speech or written it down.
No, this isn't a speech. I'm just whittering. I haven't got it. Well, yeah, this is going to be a podcast, isn't it? So you better get it from the library. There's a lady with a camera over there, and she knows what she's doing. So you will at least get this particular rave. Yeah. What's the time, friends?
7:20.
7:20. All right. Okay. Another question, please. Yes.
I'm doing Year 12 BCE drama.
Yep.
And one of the solo characters, because you have to do a solo as an end-of-year exam.
Yeah.
And one of the solo characters is Franny Fisher.
Yeah.
And Mum's got half of the series, so that's who I chose. And I was just wondering, Franny was educated in England, but she was born in Melbourne. How exactly does she speak?
A very good question. Have you ever come across any of the Belinda talking books? Do you have any here? Yeah, borrow one from the library, because the lady who does it, she was Stephanie, the lady who reads those books. She's, I chose her because she's got the perfect voice. She was born in England, she's got an English accent, but then she's got it modified by an Australian accent, and that's exactly how I imagine Franny speaking.
Sort of halfway across the ocean.
Yes. She's got a base English accent because she learnt Australian, but she went to an English school, and that was sort of battered most of her flat vowels out of her. But that Stephanie's voice is exactly the voice I imagine Franny having. And Belinda drew a lovely book, I've got to say. But the weird thing is, do you know who the Franny books on CDs sell to most? Truck drivers. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Is that read by Stephanie Thing?
Stephanie Daniel.
That's her, she's brilliant.
So
Yeah.
that's the voice.
That's the voice.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll have a listen to that, thank you.
Yeah. I just get such a kick out of imagining big rough truckies barreling down the Penn Highway, listening to Miss